What's up, YouTubers? Today we're going to talk about the CRKT Nirk Tighe 2 folding knife. This is a 3.25-inch blade made of Aus 8 steel. This particular one was designed by Tighe. And I found it at White Mountain Knives for $70. You can also find it around for like the $80 range. That seems to be the going price for the original on this one. Now there is a 2021 model coming out in a different steel than Aus 8 with some possible changes and maybe design or material changes rather for about $40. So we're going to talk about that towards the end in the context of, is this the right knife to buy for you? Again, as I talked about, this one is a Tighe design, and you'll notice that it has a very unique deployment method. Not deployment, I should say, but locking mechanism. So it does, in fact, have a flipper on the back, but you're going to notice that this one has a little channel right there, which then locks into a pin that is part of an integral lock. So if you take a look at the entire design of this, it's really kind of cool. It basically is one continuous piece that forms the locking mechanism, and then I'll squeeze that and show how that pops up there. But that particular thing contains a pin, which then locks right in the back there, and you'll see that that back lock raise up and then pop down into that channel. So I'm going to go ahead and show a quick sample of where you might have seen that before. And again, this is a 2010 knife, and this particular one that I'm going to talk about as a comparison in advance, you'll also notice a similar, the AD15, this is the cold steel version, also happens to have that little groove back there, a back lock with a spring, and then a pin on that, and then that thing locks right down onto place. So that scorpion lock is something that, again, it could be some of that parallel world thinking and or some inspiration. But this particular one, the locking mechanism, by the way, was actually based on Glenn Klecker's design. Sometime back that I guess Tighe saw that, the original Nirk folder, and said, hey, I really have to have that, or I'd really like to design a knife around that. So this particular knife I weighed in at 3.1 ounces. You'll notice the blue color on this one. Again, the newer model that's coming out now actually has green coloring, and I don't know if it's done the exact same way, but it is very beautiful. And apparently the way they did this is they used a titanium nitride to cover the scales, which really also form the frame of this thing that encompasses the whole knife. They did the whole thing in blue, and then they just went ahead and ground down the outside and satin polished the outside of that, which left behind those blue accents kind of in kind of shadow boxed inside there. So that's really kind of a cool thing. In terms of like other use and maybe cost comparisons, the ones that I kind of found in my collection were the Kaiser Bakeliter. In terms of similar size, cost, and materials, that one I want to say is like, I don't know, $70 or $80 for the Micar one. And then also the Kershaw Skyline. This can cost a little bit less. I think it's like $45, but it does have a hollow grind and similar use blade as I think you might find in that particular one. So those would be some I guess light kind of knives that they think are kind of comparables. Again, it does have a lockback mechanism here, and the blade is nicely hollow ground actually as well too, and it has a release wedge back here. Very interesting. In terms of talking about the pros and the cons on this one, I'd say the design is actually definitely one of the pros on this one. The skeletonized steel slabs make for a very light knife, even though it's some pretty hefty solid steel, or I shouldn't say solid, but slabs of steel. It is actually quite it's quite light at only 3.1 ounces. So that I found it kind of cool. It is very definitely fidgety. You'll notice the release mechanism also you're going to probably want to utilize, much like the scorpion lock, where you pinch this back part with these fingers, and then you push the blade, and then it'll snap back in. If you try to do it any other way, you do not want to do it like this, because that thing's going to slam right on your hands. And we'll talk about one of the negatives later. And if you do it with your finger in the front choil like this, it's kind of hard to do, number one. I'll do a second hand. But the flipper right there pretty much catches your finger in, and you really don't want to just pull your hand out like that. So there's really only one safe way to put this away, other than a two-handed, of course, is you could do it like that, releasing that particular, by pressing this to release that. But the only single-handed way really to do this safely is with that. You can also utilize these cutouts in the blade for middle finger flicking. Works okay. I also found it works fine with a little bit of wrist on that bigger, longer one there. You can also use it with your thumb to flip those out as well. So as far as the fidget friendly, and with it's also, by the way, it is on ball bearings. I don't know if they're caged or not on this one. There's no way I'm taking this apart. But definitely those are some of the pros, and a nice, beautiful knife. In terms of the cons, I think the thumb cutouts, for me, these were so sharp that when I went to actually use it with my thumb, it literally cut me on this one. So I actually had to knock these down on both sides with just a little ceramic rod, and then it was much happier. But you know, that's kind of part of the crummy fit and finishing of this that, you know, maybe one might expect in this budget range. The recurved blade is actually, I don't mind a recurved blade. It's a little bit more challenging to sharpen, and it's normally really good for pull cuts because it'll grab like a rope material when you need to grab on there. However, one of the cons on this one is I normally don't mind the Tighe double finger choil there, but for this particular case, with a recurve blade where you're getting one advantages on pull cuts, it really is uncomfortable. That little sharp point right there is not a very good thing. So what you're gaining by having that nice comfortable, won't see, there we go. We're going to talk about that other negative. The great comfortable feel you get from having both of those fingers right there, you lose on the pull cut side. Definitely one of the negatives on this one is it is quite easy to fail. And you'll notice more than anything on that, it's not so much the failure, because if you commit to it, it's not going to fail. But when you do, you just watch that thing literally like a spring shoots back. And it's because of this ramp here on the back and the way that it does have this integral spring back here in effect, that it literally, even at a level surface, it basically pushes it back. So if you do fail this, you want to make sure you don't have any fingers or anything in there. Absolutely a very bad thing on that. We talked about the double finger choil problem. There are some dated materials in here, OS 8, you know, but if you turn the clock back 10 years, that wasn't a bad steel. You know, S30V, I guess, was certainly readily available, but for a $70 knife, I don't know. It's just a little dated materials, I'll call it, more than crappy materials. I will say that having cut a fair bit with this before I reviewed it, it performed a lot better than CRKT's 8CR13 MOV. So from that perspective, it held a little bit longer edge, and it also didn't chip on me. And that was the big thing, is I really don't like the chipping 8CR steel that CRKT uses. And then there are pins everywhere on this thing. If you are the kind of person that wants to disassemble, you really want to go cautiously on this, because there's basically a pin there, a pin there. There's 3 pins back here, plus you have all of your T6 screws, and even at your pivot, everything's T6. So you're basically looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points to put back together, 4 of which are screws, and then the other 6 of which are just loose pins. So that could be a little bit of a challenge, and I think for me a little bit of a negative. Overall, what am I going to say about this? I would say it's probably not a proper value. It's definitely a very unique and artistic piece of a useful tool. You know, in terms of it's very artistic, this particular one, and I do like the coloring of it. And it's definitely going to be one of the more unique blades in the room if you whip this out. You know, they talk about the new CRKT Ritual that's coming out. If you carry that, you're going to have the most unique blade in the room. I don't know. I think this particular one, this Nirk Type 2, gives it a run for its money. So for my money, I probably would, maybe, if I really like the design of this one. I don't love it. I don't dislike it. But I think I would shoot for the $40 one coming out this year in the 8CR14 MOV. That's right. It has one extra molecule of, I guess, some molybdenum and vanadium or something in there. So, you know, that's my overall opinions. Is it's an okay knife, definitely beautiful and artistic, functional certainly enough. But is it worth my $70? I think I would probably maybe choose some other options, given current materials and that sort of thing. So I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe, and have a great day. Take care now.